Good evening. Hopefully you can see me here from England. I am taking part in the IEEE Women in Engineering global webcasts on Facebook. Hopefully you're going to be able to ask me any questions you have about women in engineering, specifically women in electronics or computer science, and I hope to be able to help you wherever you are around the world with some of my experience of being a woman engineer in industry and working at university. And the thing I'm most proud of is that not only am I an engineer, but both of my sons are currently at university, both taking degrees in electronics right now. In mechanical engineering, sorry, right now. They're going to kill me for that one. I'm actually with my son Morgan, who can also answer some questions if need be about his experience of being an engineering undergraduate right now. Because through my sons, I've seen the amazing opportunities that are available to young people today for their careers in a future life in engineering industry. First of all, I'm going to start with a little bit about myself. I'm sure a little bit of background might help. Just for your information about the IEEE here in the UK and the Republic of Ireland, we have 11,000 members in the UK, and as you may well know, the IEEE has over 400,000 members worldwide, so the UKRI section is quite a large one. But having said that, I would expect that of the 3,000 students we have, 90% of them are from outside the EU. That means when I visit universities and meet our young professionals in industry, I would say the majority of the young IEEE members that I meet are from China, India, Africa, South America, Russia, Brazil, you name it. I meet students from everywhere. I'm happy that UK universities are able to attract the best and the brightest from all over the world. Well, there may be maybe the richest, but London and Cambridge are very attractive places, and we have the European offices of many large, well-known corporations here in the UK. Plus, some of our other universities outside of Oxford, Cambridge, and Imperial, such as Southampton and Manchester, are also well known for their teaching of engineering. So, someone is asking me already, thank you very much. I've got a question here. You want to know which branch of electrical engineering I studied? Well, actually, I started studying electronics because I'd had an interest in hi-fi and sound recording, and I won't name the band I had a crush on when I was a teenager, but they had their own recording studio, and I decided the best way to meet my heartthrobs was to work in a recording studio with them. So I wrote to the BBC and asked, what should I do? And they said, study electronic engineering. So I specifically looked for a course that was electronics, not electrical engineering, because I've no interest in how power is generated to your homes and heavy voltage electrical engineering, how motors work and so on. I was very much more interested in how electronics works. And in fact, what I ended up doing was designing silicon chips at Texas Instruments, and then later working in automotive electronics, again, 12 volts. Was the maximum that we went to, and at Motorola and Texas Instruments, I was fortunate enough to be able to work in the USA, in Texas and Chicago, and all around Europe. So in France, Germany, and Italy, I made regular trips to our fellow design teams and manufacturing facilities in Europe. So I hope my experience of having seen attitudes to engineers in other parts of the world might also be of interest to some of the people listening tonight. As I very briefly said about my own background, after a period of time at Texas Instruments, I decided I would benefit from some postgraduate management training. So I went back to university after having my first son and did a postgraduate management program, and that got me the job at Motorola. But after a few years there, I decided a PhD might be an idea. And so please, ask any questions you have about the different paths I and the friends I have had in industry and in universities have had in their careers, because it's been quite an exciting time in electronics over the past 20 years. When I first graduated, nobody had a mobile phone. Very few people had email, although I have to say I did have email from my very first day at work. And so you know, I've seen an awful lot of change in the way in which electronics has pervaded our entire lives. The amount of electronics in a car today compared to 20 and 25 years ago is that you know, your car can do so much more than it did then. So I've got another question here on Facebook. I don't know if the right place to ask, but I want to start a project on X-band radar. Do you have any suggestion for me to build my knowledge on an engineering topic that I don't know much about in a short time? Well, I have to say I am not a radar expert, but one of the beauties of being an IEEE member is that there are lots of technical chapters. And if you contact the chapter chair of a particular section, so I expect that's microwave electronics section, chapter of the IEEE, ask your local chair if they can help you. Also, go on to the IEEE website and take a look around the resources that are available to you, because the thing is, it's only by being a member of the IEEE that you can actually search the IEEE papers and publications, and Google will not find these things. If you're a student at university, then the university will have probably unlimited access to those databases, and so they will issue you a password to be able to get onto the IEEE website and look at those things. I think if you also think of a company that's involved in this area of work. We just happen to be in close to the University of Surrey, and the University of Surrey has a satellite company, and so again there are experts on that particular area in this vicinity. So I'd be tempted to try and contact one of the people there and see if anybody was willing to talk to me about it. What am I currently working on or researching? Well, that's a difficult question, because like a lot of electronic engineers, I'm unemployed at the moment, but I happen to be in a position where I can donate time to voluntary activities, and that keeps me very busy. And I actually really quite enjoy having some time on my hands at this particular stage, because I live close to Cambridge and London, and I can literally go to an interesting lecture or debate almost every day. So I can invite myself to seminars at Cambridge, or lectures at Imperial College, or debates in the House of Lords. I have been very privileged to be invited to lots of really great meetings where I think outside of my traditional area of interest. So if you've got time on your hands, make good use of it. I have another question, and was it hard for me to find a job? One of the traditional sayings that a lot of women engineers, when we get together, we say is that it's easy to get a job, it's very hard to get on. So getting in is easy, getting on is a completely different story. So a lot of female students, when looking for their first job, will find that they're invited to a lot of interviews just because many companies have a very tiny number of electronic engineers on their staff. In reality, here in the UK, less than 5% of students taking electronics and mechanical engineering degrees are female, whereas in industry, you'll probably find that number is far lower, maybe even 2%. There are some companies I know that are excellent and have maybe 10% of their staff, of their engineering staff, who are female, but they are very few and far between. There are still an awful lot of women out there who are the first woman in their company to do things, or the only woman in a particular group or design team, and that's a challenge we have yet got to overcome. I have another question here. How and why did I first become interested in engineering? Well, I think I've already spoken about the fact that I had a crush on a pop band, and I wanted to work in a recording studio alongside them, mainly because I had actually been very good at science all the way through school. I wanted to become a doctor, but that option was not available to me, and so the next best thing was to do engineering. I have to say, I think being in engineering has given me a much more exciting career than I might have had being a family doctor. So no regrets there. I've had the opportunity to travel and look at the changes in our world through an engineer's eyes in a way that perhaps people in another profession don't get to see. I have friends who are lawyers, accountants, teachers, and I'm certainly glad I've not got their job. Did I experience doubt of my abilities from my male counterparts? There's another question coming through from Tracy on Ustream. Well, Tracy, yes. I mean, absolutely. I've heard it all. I've heard things from go home and play with your dolls, you really don't belong here, particularly once when I was pregnant, when I had my first son and went back to work. And actually, to be perfectly honest, some of the women around me were the worst, never mind the men. But yes, you do see still, very sadly, and I can cite examples of stereotyping of women going on even today. But women are not given the jobs in industry to be the team leaders, to be the innovators, the architects, to provide the ideas, to make the decisions, to be the movers and shakers. And I find that very, very frustrating, that you see very few women engineers in responsible positions in industry who've got a first degree in electronics or computing, who can then be role models to the younger women coming up. I can go to Cambridge and ask, who is the most senior female you have in your organisation, and they will point me to a very fresh graduate, and that is still very sad. How do you, next question from Facebook is, how do you handle family life balance and grow your future? Is children number one in your life? I have been a member of the British organisation similar to SWE, the Society of Women Engineers in the USA. The organisation in the UK is 90 years old and called WES, Women's Engineering Society. And through that, I've met a lot of women, and I got some brilliant advice from them women. And one woman said to me before I even had children, she said, it's like a pivot, a balance. Sometimes your career is number one and sometimes your family is number one. On the whole, it will balance out, but you know, sometimes it does seesaw a bit. So I would say that yes, children have been very important. I wouldn't be without them. But have I neglected them because of my work? Well, absolutely. One thing I didn't do is say no. So when I was asked if I would work abroad when my children were very small, I said yes. A friend of who sadly, Dr. Karen Burt, is no longer with us, but she was my early career mentor, and she said, if you go to France for a week and your child cries the whole time you're away, then it's a disaster, and don't do it again anytime soon. But if the child doesn't miss you, you've got good childcare and your husband copes, then you've proved that women can do it. And that's what I did. I actually tried everything to balance family and children, and I think by and large it worked. I've got another question here. What engineers were my role models, and which engineers have you always respected? Well, I didn't have any female engineering role models growing up at all. Here in the UK, still too many people talk about the historic engineers like Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Very few people can name an engineer, unlike in America, where it's easy to name the top people in Silicon Valley, even the very recent ones like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates. So I have to say that my role models, perhaps 25 years ago, were the women I met in WES, Dr. Karen Burt and Suzanne Flynn. Other women who became presidents of the Women's Engineering Society were always there for offering great advice. And so I tried to do for others what they did for me all that time ago. But the engineers that I have always respected, By and large, some of the amazing men I've worked with, some of the people I worked with at Texas Instruments and Motorola, some of the men were absolutely world class. I won't name them here, but I can certainly say that I've been very fortunate to work with some people who have really moved technology forward. And now I would say the sorts of people that I am impressed by, Elon Musk, for example, he said something recently that engineering is the closest thing to magic we have on earth, which I think is a brilliant thing to say about careers in engineering. And amongst the women, I would say I respect very much people like Diane Green, who is the only woman ever to have founded a billion-dollar company in Silicon Valley. She was also the chief exec, and she's on the board of various companies like Google. So she's somebody that all you women engineers out there should know about, Diane Green. But people like Radia Perlman and the Estrin sisters, there are some women you read about in the IEEE Women Engineering magazine who've been around for many years and are really there, keeping going and doing better things year in, year out. So yes, there are some brilliant role models out there. But please do ask any questions that you have, and I will try to give you some more information about my perspective, having been involved in promoting women in engineering for nearly 30 years now. I started on my first electronics course when I was 16, and so I have seen a lot of changes in how engineering is taught and in how people's attitudes towards careers in engineering has changed. So one of the things I particularly wanted to say is that another question has come through, so I'll answer that. What do I think will become the major technical focus of 2013, and where do I think we're going from here? Well, I happen to think that we're going to see a big change in attitudes to careers in engineering in the next year. As a result of the financial crisis that has affected Europe and the USA and probably a few other places besides, we are seeing less emphasis on financial services and a lot of politicians saying that we need to rebalance the economy. And one of the significant changes they need to make is to return to wealth creation through being innovative, through manufacturing, and through building big companies that provide lots and lots of jobs for people. So I actually think there's going to be a lot more talk about how important it is that there are some more large infrastructure projects, like building railways, improving water supplies, energy supplies. There are going to be massive changes in solar energy and other forms of clean energy. And in fact, that's an area that does attract a lot of women. I've got another question here on Ustream from Tracy. Why do you think that young girls are hesitant to join STEM careers? Don't they pay better? Well, that is very debatable. Some of the best people that you will read, best paid people you will read about can be engineers. Engineering opens many doors, and so the leaders of many businesses, even if they're not engineering companies, may have started as engineers, because the one thing that engineers do is that they solve problems. Engineering is basically about solving problems and making things. And once you can do those two things, you can really run any sort of company. So yes, there are some people with first degrees in engineering who end up being very highly paid. But there are a lot of engineers who are not that well paid. Perhaps I've heard that salaries in places like Germany have stagnated for around a decade. And I certainly read on US websites lots of complaints about the pay of engineers compared to those with professional careers that require the same qualifications and length of experience. So in some cases, yes, engineers can be well paid, in others not so much. But I think you really have to check how that differs in your particular part of the world. it's certainly the respect for engineers differs very greatly in Europe and in developing countries. In China and India, many of the young people say that if you want to support your family, you want to be a doctor or an engineer. Whereas I think in the West we would say that you want to be a lawyer or an accountant, and that's really not what we want for the future. I've got another question from Amanda on Ustream. What kind of activities can we do at we in Brazil, at UFJF Brazil, to improve women's graduation? Well, actually, I think one of the important things about a women in engineering group is to help more engineers and better engineers. In the UK, we don't have women-only meetings because there are so few women. We tend to work through the student groups and the gold groups, the graduates of the last decade groups, to help all young professionals. And I think what you then have to focus in is how do you give engineers an edge? How do you help them think more creatively, be more innovative, take on some of the challenges that are really going to help them develop some skills that will distinguish them from other students? So there are some great projects that you can get involved in as students or once you're in industry, certainly some of it through volunteering, in order to develop project management and leadership skills that will really help you. I think some of the great initiatives, some of the global competitions are a really great way to enhance your CV. So both my sons are actually involved in the Formula Student program, which is a competition that takes place where teams from all over the world design and build a racing car and then visit racetracks around the world to compete those cars. And I think they're a great opportunity to meet engineers from all over the world, but to actually work as a student in developing some of the practical skills and understanding of how to manage a project that you probably won't get on your course. Next question from Claudio on Ustream. As a chair of Women in Engineering, how do you see the IEEE's activities importance in female students' retention? Well, I don't know how effective we are at retaining women per se in the UK, because so many of the women who study here don't actually then stay here. I've met women studying at universities in London who've then taken their first jobs in other parts of Europe or returned to Asia, to their home country. And so so long as they then go on to careers in engineering, absolutely, I wish them well. But I really hope that we can help with women's retention by linking them, hopefully to me, but to others who might mentor them and help guide them through some of the challenges they face in the workplace, and to actually help them see what it is that they need to do in order to develop better as an engineer and to actually advance their career. Because one of the challenges a lot of women have is that the advancement of women in industry has not been nearly as great as it has been in other professions. And so you can meet women lawyers and accountants, medical doctors and so on, who have significantly more responsibility, manage larger teams than you see women engineers having in this country. So I still believe there is a fair bit of sexism out there, but I hope that groups like Women in Engineering can help support women so that they will be retained in the industry, and the longer they stay, the more likely they are to progress. I've got another question here, is do men get involved in WE, and is there anything that men can do? Well, actually, yes. I gave a talk to Queen Mary, University of London, and to Cambridge University Women at the Computer Labs, both just before the summer vacation started, and both of those meetings were attended by, I would say, about a third men. in the audience. So yes, men can absolutely be members of Women in Engineering. If you're a student, it's free for anybody to be a member of WE. And we encourage men to get involved in WE because it's not only women's attitudes that need to change, it's obviously men's attitudes that need to change. And so if we bring men into the group, we can help them understand some of the things that women see in the way in which they're treated, that perhaps men aren't aware that they're doing, that makes women feel as perhaps they don't belong. If you're in a class and the class is 97% male, that's what it feels like. It feels 97% male. Whenever you see statistics reported, they're always reported of, oh, it's 3% female. And people go, oh, well, you know, then it'll be 5% or something. They don't actually ever report the figures the way round that it feels if you're a woman in that situation. So it's little things that matter. Also, one of those things that men can also help is, you know, women are referred to as girls a lot of the time. And by the time you're 25 and you've got a PhD, you're not really a girl. I've got another question from Raquel on Ustream, and she's saying, how important was the IEEE in my academic life, and how much has it helped me professionally? I have to say that IEEE I joined when I started at Texas Instruments because we were doing local area network chips. We were designing local area network devices, IEEE 802.3 and 802.5. That's Ethernet and IBM Token Ring. And so we wanted papers about what we were doing published in the journals. The department I was in was very much an R&D type department, and so we were doing very much leading edge technology. So being an IEEE member was important because we were using IEEE standards. Further on, I found IEEE is useful as I believe the IEEE publications are so much better than the publications published certainly by the British engineering institutions. They certainly really help you keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on globally, more so than the more local, more parochial publications that we have here. And also, I feel that the IEEE is less about a lot of retired blokes getting together for an evening networking meetings. I found too many of the meetings here where I've gone and I've been surrounded by elderly academics when I've attended other groups' meetings, whereas when I attend an IEEE meeting, I find there's a very healthy balance of people there. I've got another question here from Erica on Ustream. What do I think of the study that found that professors view female students as less competent than male students? I'd love to see the study. I have absolutely no idea where that's come from, but I think if you look at publications from very reputable organisations like McKinsey, they are saying that actually there should be more women on boards of directors. Companies are actually more profitable with women on their boards. A male-only board is actually less effective, less good for the shareholders in a company, because women bring a different perspective and actually help reduce some of the careless risks that a very macho all-male board sometimes undertakes. But also, I don't believe that there has been any proof that I have seen that suggests that women are any less competent than men at the underpinning skills such as maths, physics, other sciences, the computing. I believe that if you look at the quality of students' results, both at high school or A-levels here in the UK, we would call it, or at university, you will find that in many places, women are actually amongst the better students. I've actually had the opportunity to meet an Indian minister for science and technology a couple of times in London at very high level functions. And I've asked the question, which is available freely online. I asked the question, you know, in the Indian Institutes of Technology, how many female students are there studying engineering and computing, and you know, what happens to them? And the minister's response, I kid you not, has been, that's interesting, because in India they have a challenge that 80% of the medal winners, the first class honours, the prize winners, the creme de la creme, 80% of those students are female, but they graduate and disappear. And when I've spoken to Indian PhD students who are women at Cambridge, they have said, but you don't understand the pressure that there is on us from our families then to have a good marriage. And actually it concerns the Indian government that they are losing many of their finest minds on graduation. I know that attrition of women with science and engineering qualifications on graduation is a major concern of governments worldwide. And so again, I really don't believe that those that quote that female students are viewed as less competent. But I think if you look at some of the good research centres like NC WIT and Anita Borg Institute, you will find plenty of research publications to actually contradict that view. I've got another question. Is what words of advice do you give to young female engineers when you meet them? Well, I actually have here with me some of the prompts of some of the key messages that I want to give to young women engineers. And I think one of the things that I do very frequently say, and again I think reflecting in the importance of the IEEE, is that you get out of life what you put into it. If you pay a subscription and you get a magazine through the post and you don't look at it and you don't attend any meetings, then you're going to say to yourself, well, actually the IEEE isn't worth it. If you make the effort to connect with the IEEE, to attend some of the meetings, to volunteer for some of the groups, then you will get an awful lot more out of it. I think I've already said that in balancing children and my career, I've always had the philosophy, again taught to me by Dr. Karen Burt, is try not to say no. Don't give them the excuse of, oh, we offered her that opportunity and she said no, so we won't offer that to the next woman. Karen Burt used to say, if you can, do, and if you don't, it's because you can't. Also, I think busy women tend to be very well organised. A lot of women gravitate to roles in project management because women are just better organised, and so they get things done. That actually gives them an awful lot of power in organisations. I've got another question here from Facebook. Have I ever faced discrimination because of my gender, and how should we cope with such behaviour? The straightforward answer to that is absolutely yes, 100%, no questions about it. Yes, I have absolutely faced discrimination. I believe that a lot of women are stereotyped. I believe a lot of women are pushed into the girly jobs. They don't get given the opportunity to do within the various roles in a team. There may be one which is the most creative, the architect, the innovator, and then there are more support functions. And so, you know, you might say there are chiefs and lots of Indians, and very few women get to be the chiefs, get to be the originator of the ideas. They get given more of the support roles. And so, yes, I believe that a lot of women are stereotyped. And moreover that, because women can communicate better than a lot of women, they also get encouraged to move into some of the roles like corporate communication and marketing and so on, rather than becoming deeper in the technology and becoming better engineers. So I think a lot of women are sidelined out of engineering quite quickly, and that's why we don't see as many women innovators or technical leaders. Only 2% of patents in electronics or computing are from women. I've got another question here from Rashmik on Ustream. Household responsibilities still hold women back in most of the developing nations like India. What would I say about that, and how would you respond to that? Well, the very simple question is if 97% of the solutions are coming from men, do you genuinely believe men have 97% of the best ideas? I don't believe that that's the case. I believe that women are equally capable of solving the world's problems. And remember, there are an awful lot of challenges out there to go round. In developing countries, you need clean water. You need improved energy supplies. You need better transport for congested cities. You need, railways and roads building. You need improved internet communications, telecoms to remote parts of the country. Maybe, there aren't satellite links or mobile phone connections in remote parts. There are medical technologies. You look at American medical drama program, and you look at the technology in hospitals, everything from robotic surgery to brilliant imaging technology. All of those require engineers. And why is it right to only have 50% of the population develop those technologies? Erica Green is asking a question on Ustream. If you're interested in the study, it's in the PNAS science faculties. Subtle gender biases favour male students. Right, okay, I am familiar of work about gender biases, unconscious biases it's often referred to. Yes, but then I can remember as a 16-year-old student, I went to a technical college, and I was the first ever female student at our institution, and there were 400 men and me, and I can remember the young men would say to me, I didn't understand what the lecturer just said. Could you ask this question? Because if I ask it, he'll think I'm stupid and he'll throw the blackboard rubber at me. So I used to chirp up very naively, playing the girly card, as you do, and I'd ask a question and he'd say, oh, well, I probably didn't explain it well enough. Let me go over it again. And so there was no depth to which a woman couldn't fall to, ask the questions. And men would say, oh, well, it doesn't matter because she just didn't get it the way that I expect men to. But actually, what's happening on boards of directors, it's the women who ask the non-typical questions that are actually unearthing some of the issues that there are there. If you've got all men, you kind of get into a group think. I mean, is the crisis that the world financial sector is suffering right now not proof that there was mass group think? If that happens in engineering, it's a disaster. So you need a diversity of ideas. And before I answer the next question, which has come through from Savani, please bear with me. I want to tell a little story. My youngest son is at Manchester University, and he's been very fortunate in that he's managed to get scholarships both last year and this to go and study abroad. Last year, he travelled from the UK to Hangzhou in China, and spent his Easter vacation there at Zhejiang University and had a brilliant time. This year he went one better. He had a longer stay. He spent the summer vacation at Seoul National University in South Korea, and once he'd finished the course there, he went touring Japan. And whilst he was at Seoul, Jordan said to me that there were 300 students on his course. And when a group of Chinese students, or students from Singapore, or students from one particular nationality got together, very quickly the team could have almost a shorthand conversation. They could communicate with each other very quickly. And they very quickly appointed a team leader, and they came up with a solution to a problem they were set. He said, but when they got one person from China, one person from South Africa, one person from America, him from the UK, maybe somebody from elsewhere in Europe, all people from different cultures, different nationalities. It took them longer to come up with the solution, but the solution they gave was better. So he is absolutely convinced that diversity provides a better solution. So if the population solving problems is only from one particular group, white men, then you are not going to get the sheer innovation that you will if you've got a diversity of nationalities and a diversity of backgrounds. So women, disabled people, and so on. So I really feel as though that's an important lesson that he has seen firsthand. I'm going back to the question here for me. It is, what is the role of the IEEE in promoting women researchers? Well, the IEEE has an awful lot of academics amongst its membership, and in fact it's probably that group that we serve best. But I do say that it is important that you take part. So if you are a researcher, the IEEE have excellent conferences all around the world. I think in the UK we had well over 200 events last year. And so you need to attend those conferences and technical meetings and meet others and ask for help, ask to be mentored. And you know, that is what we are there for. We all pay an individual subscription. We are all there as individual people, and you can ask any of us for support. And we do unto others as we would have done to ourselves. I've got another question now. Amanda is asking a question on Ustream. What things are important for women to get a good job or a promotion? Again, anecdotally, and some women do suffer from this and some don't, but I'm hearing that some women perhaps don't promote themselves as well as they should. Maybe they lack confidence. Maybe they just have a different style that they talk about their own capabilities in. So that a woman will say, I was involved in this, and a man would say, oh, it was all my own idea. But the thing is, within engineering, the reality is, just about every engineer I know works in a team. Women are by their very nature collaborative, and that again is very healthy in industry. So actually the very things that make engineering organizations work better are the things that women are naturally good at. Things like being organized, collaborating, and not being completely driven by their egos, by being, able to, just get their heads down and get on with things. So I think in order for a woman to get a good job, one of the things that is important, it's a lesson I have learned from bitter experience, is if it's not working out, you have to be prepared to vote with your feet. If you are not happy in a particular organisation, realise that if you're not happy, you're almost certainly not doing your best work. So maybe sometimes you have to say, it's time to move on. And so long as you are one of those people that they're fearful of losing, you'll probably find they will treat you better and promote you in order to keep you. So, again, be confident, and certainly we can discuss a lot more how a woman gets a promotion. Again, all of you will find me through the IEEE UKRI Women in Engineering page, and if you want to email me, please feel free to do so. I've got another question on Ustream, and what do I think the IEEE's role is in promoting I don't know how much other IEEE groups elsewhere in the world promote WE to their members. Certainly here in the UK, as I've mentioned, we don't have women-only meetings, but the female members tend to be very happy to be involved in running a student group or running the gold group, or even running certain technical chapters. So we have a female secretary here in the UK section right now, and up to last year we had a female treasurer. So actually we have women engineers who are putting themselves forwards into the officer roles on the UK RI executive, and I think that then promotes the contribution women can make to running of the IEEE in our particular part of the world. And in fact, when I meet other women engineers within IEEE in other parts of Region 8, and UK is part of Region 8, which is essentially the whole of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, we find that the women are, by and large, not really involved in women in engineering. They're involved in other IEEE activity. I've seen some astonishing reactivity, though, in the Gulf states. I've met amazing women from United Arab Emirates, from Saudi Arabia, and actually some of the most inspiring female WE members are in the places you'd least expect to find them. I have another question. What are some ways that women can do better job of promoting themselves? Again, I think it's by getting involved, by getting out there and really showing an interest. Nobody can really resist somebody being curious about what they do. If you go to a guy who is at the top of his field in a particular sphere of electronics and computing, and you meet him at a university or at an event for a particular trade or industry association, and ask them what they do, I think you will find they're very happy to explain it to you. And I think that is it. Just stay curious. And in fact, I think one of the most inspiring lectures for any engineer I've ever heard is the very classic Steve Jobs Stanford graduation speech. 15 minutes, but everybody should watch it sometime in their life. In fact, I think if you go onto YouTube after this program and watch Steve Jobs at Stanford University, you will learn lessons for life that you might not hear expressed quite so eloquently anywhere else. I've got a question here from Raquel. Which is the best engineering field for women? In which are you in? Okay. Now, there are very, very significant sectoral or discipline-specific differences between women. In the UK, there are a lot more women in civil engineering than there are in electronics and computing or mechanical or some of the other very traditional fields of engineering. The thing is that some fields of engineering you can get admission to university without having an A-level, that's a high school qualification, in physics. So, for example, if you go into civil engineering, sometimes you can get on a course with just maths. In chemical engineering, you can get onto a course with maths and chemistry. It's where you need physics as well that you find that fewer women then apply. And therefore, that is where we lose a lot of women straight away. They don't have the necessary qualifications even to get into university. We lose a lot more further down the line when they graduate. But then women, there are more women in civil engineering than any of the disciplines. Next below that, I would say, would be chemical engineering. Again, for the reasons I've just explained. And you will find electronics and computing, in this country particularly, a very tiny number of female techies out there. I've got another question from Savani. Back to the question on the IEEE's role in promoting women in engineering, particularly what does we do to help women in financial requirements? I don't believe IEEE has bursaries, scholarships, whatever disbursements to give to female members, but we can certainly help you locate lots of the funds that are out there, and that will be available again through the standard IEEE students and other pages. There are lots and lots of scholarships and awards out there that can help ease the burden on students. One of my sons is the Microsoft ambassador for his university, for which he gets a brilliant free laptop, a free phone. He's soon to get a brilliant tablet, and he can get some money from them as well. So it's actually well worthwhile applying for the things that you get letters, emails through from the university promoting opportunities, because some of these can lead to quite significant financial rewards. and how has the IEEE helped me transform my life, and what do I think the IEEE should improve on? The IEEE is in a different situation, I think, in the UK and Europe compared to its position in the USA. I can contrast my experience of visiting California and Texas and meeting members of the IEEE there with the experience here. And I have to say that IEEE is far better at networking its members in the USA than it is here in the UK and elsewhere in Europe. I think there's much more social activity in the USA. Having said that, at least the IEEE does have an awful lot of very active volunteers and a lot of meetings here in Europe. And the other American-based engineering institutions like ASME, HE, SAE, SME, the mechanical, chemical, electrical, civil, whatever, they have no presence in Europe other than occasional technical conferences or training programs. But as far as networks for people to join, student groups and so on, I'm not aware of many of the engineering institutions outside of the IEEE having a very active presence. I've got a question here from Lily Rose on Ustream. How can I get the maximum benefit from WE? Again, I think the thing is, the message has to be, you get out of life what you put into it. So contact your local chair and try and get involved in some of the activities that WE supports. There is one activity that I support outside of the IEEE, but a lot of IEEE members do take part in it, and that's the Global Marathon. And the Global Marathon is an activity organised by eWeek, Engineering Week in the USA, but it is for women engineers, by women engineers, and about women engineers. And the beauty of the Global Marathon is that it connects women of all disciplines of engineering at all career stages and in all parts of the world. And I hope when that comes around next March, around the time of International Women's Day, you'll think of joining in and seeing how IEEE WE can connect with women in other disciplines of engineering all around the world. Another question is, how do we get funds for WE? Well, in that case, you need to contact the IEEE office in Piscataway, Kayana Tennant there, who's absolutely delightful and has a little baby. And she will be able to give you all the information you need about setting up a Women in Engineering group in your particular part of the world. There aren't massive funds for it, but if you start small, you can start to do some quite incredible things. And I think one of the beauties of us doing something like this here on Facebook is that we are starting to use the technology that's very widely available to connect our members and hopefully increase the amount of support and encouragement and practical guidance that we can give to each other. So hopefully people like me who've seen an awful lot of the electronics industry, from having worked in industry and also through having sons who are currently students and seeing the opportunities open to them, I hope we can offer some support. There are some other activities that I did want to mention before we finish. There are some scholarships available through organisations like the Anita Borg Institute, which will give you, say, a travel bursary to attend the Grace Hopper conference. And one of the IEEE WE members from the UK, actually an Italian lady studying here, got a trip to Portland, Oregon last year to attend the Grace Hopper conference and had a brilliant time. That was an event that just simply doesn't happen over here. 3,000 women, and it attracted Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook, who again is another person who you must check out on Facebook, on YouTube. She's the Facebook Chief Operating Officer, but she gives very inspiring talks to women in electronics and computing. And again, I'm going to hopefully post all of the things that I'm recommending to you onto Facebook. Actually have some documents there as well that I suggest you read, some lists of links and videos that you should check out. So hopefully after this program you can return to the IEEE Women in Engineering Facebook page and find some resources that I'm going to put up there, and I'm sure Karen Panetta and my other fellow chairs around the globe will be adding their resources. And given that we have a session coming up with Maria Cristina Diaz Tavares next week, I think you should be aware of the Latin American organized event Campus Party, because again, one of my sons was very fortunate to get a free trip to Campus Party in Berlin over the summer holiday, and there will be a campus party in Ecuador very soon and in San Francisco next year, and I hope that some of you can find some funds to go to Campus Party in San Francisco next year, because that will be absolutely brilliant. In fact, I'm just remembering there are some organisations here in the UK, like the Royal Academy of Engineering, who will provide travel bursaries for women if they can show that they're actively involved in promoting women in engineering to attend events like that, because I have a friend who was able to go to an event in India on that very basis. And another question from Ashish: what should the role of the We Affinity Group in technical emergence of women, offering grants and all? I think the role of women in engineering is really not about funding, it's about support. It's about women helping other women. Because, as I said, statistics very clearly show, and if you look at the Anita Borg Institute or NC WIT, they have excellent resources available that will give you the statistics just how few women there are out there. In the UK, between 30 and 50 women a year become chartered engineers in electronics each year. So really, 50 women between thousands of companies. I have time for one more question, so if anybody has a last thought, please let me know. I'm very fortunate in that some of the guys I used to work with at Texas Instruments and Motorola are now leaders in some of the top companies in Cambridge, at ARM, at Plastic Logic, at CSR, and many of the other leading companies in Cambridge. And my last question has come through. It's from Rashmik on Ustream. The books that have motivated me and touched me, I have a very extensive library, and my sons are now just beginning to realise why I have all these books on my bookshelf, and they have absolutely loved all of the Jim Collins books. So that for any engineer, they are an absolute must read. I've read the biographies of Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, both the founders of Apple. Very, very different books. I'm with Woz, I'm an engineer, but the Steve Jobs book was very well written. So Lily Rose wants to know, what is my email address? My email address is tmschofield@theiet.org, tmschofield@theiet.org. That will find me. So please get in touch with any questions that you have, and any other great books. Too many to mention, I can give you a book list. I'm happy to put that on the web page too. And so I hope that you've enjoyed this second of the IEEE Women in Engineering live web chats, and I hope you're going to take part in future sessions as we go around the globe connecting women. And please get in touch with any questions that you have through the Facebook page. But I want to say thank you very much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed it. Bye bye.